having this meeting because the second district, where this police district is, has many neighborhoods. And even though each neighborhood has their own meetings, we're not talking together as one collaborative group. So it was important to bring the police also with the circuit attorney's office so that all the neighborhoods were here and we could give the information out at one time just to better educate and communicate with all the neighborhoods that fall within the second district.
Just an informative meeting so that we can get together as a neighborhood and help prevent crime, work with the police to keep crime out of our neighborhood.
My name is Mike Sorth. I'll be our moderator tonight. I'm a 23rd Ward resident and officer in the Tilly's Park Neighborhood Association. I'd like to thank you for coming to the first Southside Safety Collaborative meeting. And you might ask, what is a Southside Safety Collaborative? Well, it grew out of the last Second District Public Affairs meeting, where a number of neighbors in attendance expressed an interest in having a town hall meeting or some type of gathering to address the issue of crime in Southwest St. Louis. And so instead of just working within our neighborhood, we thought it would be a good idea to look at both the 23rd and 16th wards. So we got together with the leaders of each neighborhood, of the main neighborhood associations in those wards, which in the 23rd ward, that's Tilly's Park, Lindenwood Park, and in the 16th ward, it's the Southampton Neighborhood Association and the St. Louis Hills Neighborhood Association. So those four groups got together and talked about many issues, but what it really boiled down to is what tools do we need to address crime in those two wards in the second district. And at the end of the day, I think for the most part, while we need to do some things differently and we need to work a little harder in some areas, for the most part, we have the tools we need. So we wanted to bring all those tools together in one evening and invite neighbors, invite residents of those neighborhoods out to learn a little bit about those tools and how they could better use them and meet the providers of service in our city and start building a sustainable network or program for all of us in this room to be involved in to address crime. Each summer we get our little rash of nuisance crimes in Southwest St. Louis, car break-ins, some home break-ins. Some aren't nuisance, some are obviously worse than that. But we get an uprising of emotion and enthusiasm about getting involved. And then unfortunately, as time goes on, those emotions die down and the enthusiasm goes away. And we lose some of those people that were potential carriers of the banner for us and people that could help address crime in our neighborhoods. So we want to put something in place, again, a sustainable program where all of us can participate, from starting with a 911 call and providing good information, leading on to helping the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office address the actual case by being good witnesses or helping their efforts. And then lastly, by having the NSO, our neighborhood stabilization officers, provide them the information they need, including that initial 911 call, to start the problem properties process. So again, we brought everyone together to address all of those issues. And one last sort of housekeeping item is we'd like to take questions. We think questions and answers is an important part of this process. However, in the interest of time, what we ask you to do is there are note cards on your tables and pens. If when you think of a question, you could jot it down and who it's for, which one of our speakers. And at the end of the program, they'll be passed up, and I'll select a couple for each speaker to address. If your question's not answered, of course, our speakers will be around for you to ask those questions directly. We ask, too, that you keep the questions broad in scope and not about a particular incident when you're looking to the broader group. Obviously, when you're talking to either the captain or the circuit attorney or NSO, you are welcome to ask whatever you want. But for purposes of our group, let's try to keep it broad in scope. So with that, our first speaker is Captain Ronnie Robinson.
Good evening, and I would like to commend everybody for being here tonight and taking time out of your personal schedules to show up and voice your concerns about your neighborhood and what's happening in the district with the police department citywide and with the district and also with the circuit attorney's office. The issues are very important to us, and you being here tonight means a lot. Hopefully this type of event can grow This is the first one, and maybe we can gather some good information, give you guys some good information, educate you a little bit, and have all the answers for you relative to what your concerns are about. First of all, I would like to commend Alderwoman Donna Baringer and Aldermen Joe Vaccardo for their efforts in organizing this with coming to the last public affairs meeting that we had in District 2. And we saw a need and a concern for us to get together on a larger scale and grow in an effort to decrease crime in your neighborhoods. There are two very active alder people and very concerned about your neighborhoods, and I'm always getting attention and their calls and their emails from both of those people. So I just want to commend both of them, and if you can, just give them a round of hand for the work that they're doing. Right now in the district, we're heading into this past month was a very strategic month for us to decrease crime, because crime trends have shown in the last couple of years that the month of September was a very active month. And in the last 4-week period, we've been able to reduce crime in the last 4 weeks as opposed to this point in time last year, and it's been a gallant effort of every officer in District 2. Last year, we had a double-digit decrease in crime as opposed to 2009. In 2010, our self-initiated activity, what that is that officers that get out of their cars and take it upon themselves to get involved in something that they see that's strange or unfamiliar or doesn't seem right, they get out and they take action themselves. We take a stat and a number for just about everything that we do now, and we record those issues and record that action. Self-initiated activity last year in 2010 was up as opposed to 2008 and the previous 5 years from that. And this year right now, self-initiated activity from officers is up this year. So we're in a 3-year trend, going into a 3-year trend in increasing our activity from officers, showing that they're out there working diligently to handle the issues in the district. And also, we're doing it with less people. As you know, with budget constraints across the nation and for economical reasons, you know, the police department is decreasing. We don't have as many policemen as we did 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But we're doing more with the officers that we have. And what we're doing is we're using what we call CompStat to police smarter in the city of St. Louis. So instead of a lot of wasted activity, what we do is we record crime every night, and we look at where it's happening in the district, where it's happening in the city, and then we direct our manpowers to those areas where the most of the crime is occurring. So we focus on targeting crime in areas and policing smart and not wasting times in areas where crime isn't happening. And we're doing a pretty good job at it. Right now, well, last year, as you know, in District 2, the culture of this district is a lot different from other districts in the city of St. Louis. And the crimes that drives the numbers in District 2 are basically property crimes, burglaries, larcenies, people breaking into cars, breaking into garages, breaking into your homes. That's what's driving our numbers and keeping that crime rate up in the district. And we pay a lot of attention in the district to those type of issues. We don't have a lot of violent issues in District 2, and robbery is probably the most violent crime that we experience in the district, and we pretty much prioritize burglary, robbery, and then larcenies in this district as high priority. Anytime you see anything in the community, anything in your neighborhood that's out of the ordinary, whether it be a suspicious vehicle or a suspicious person, you should dial 911. You do not bother us when you call 911 for issues that you think that may not be important. But believe me, we've gotten tips from people, seeing people that don't live in the neighborhood, that are walking the streets, driving in the neighborhood as if they're casing homes or houses, and those 911 calls have led to arrest. And without those citizens getting involved and engaging in what's going on in their community, we wouldn't have gotten those tips and not be able to affect those arrests. And we've had a lot of high-profile arrests just from people that live in the district calling and giving us a tip, giving us a description of a vehicle, giving us a description of a person or individual that they see that don't belong in the neighborhood, and they know that they don't live in the neighborhood, and that's a big help. But we're still having occurrences where people are not calling the police, and we respond to a criminal act or some type of criminal activity, and then only to find out later as we do our search for witnesses that they did see the individual in the neighborhood, they saw the car in the neighborhood, they thought something was wrong, but they didn't call the police. And almost 9 times out of 10, the number one answer is, well, we didn't want to bother the police. You do not bother us. Police love or enjoy responding to a call and not having to take action and being able to communicate with the public and being able to talk to you about what you saw. We love that. We've made it a priority in District 2, and I've made sure, and the other commanders and supervisors that work with me, we've made sure that the officers take this on as a priority to respond to those type of calls. Any suspicious person call or suspicious vehicle call, it's a high priority for us. So don't play it as a trivia, don't play it cheap. Call us anytime you see anything. What we're trying to do now also this year is we're trying to develop, it's a project, a collaboration between the police department, the citizens, and the circuit attorney's office. And I'm sure Jennifer will speak on this, is that we're trying to engage in what we call a neighborhood patrol. And it's a patrol that's different from any other neighborhood patrol that you probably are familiar with, where the officers are going to come out and train you on what to see and what to do. Also, you're going to be given a liaison officer where you'll have that contact information of that officer, his cell phone, and any other number you need to get in contact with the officer, and he'll be dedicated to your neighborhood. So that's coming soon. And we're going to start off with the 3 neighborhoods of Northampton, Southampton, and Lindenwood Park, because that's where we're seeing the most criminal activity at this stage of the game. So that's coming real soon. And it's working in the 9th District, and it's working in Dutchtown. And I'm very excited about it. And it's only going to enhance our efforts to decrease crime in the district, because it's going to educate you, and also it's going to give us a better rapport with each other. So I'm excited about that. As I said before, as far as prioritizing crime in the district, burglary is my #1 concern as far as District 2 is concerned. When I first came to the district 2 years ago, it'll be 3 years this January, my efforts was to decrease people from breaking into your homes and breaking into your garages. So what I did was came up with an idea of developing a burglary crew. And this crew consists of one of the best sergeants, I think, in the city of St. Louis, probably nationwide, as far as what she does every day when she comes in to prepare her people for going out on the street every day. She comes to work early, she's in the computer, she studies, she's in and out of every community as far as what's happening as far as thefts are concerned, burglaries are concerned, and she knows burglary inside and out, because that's all she's been focusing on for the past 2 years. And her people are outstanding. She's got 4 detectives right now that are just outstanding. 2 of them are plainclothes and 2 of them in uniform. And they're very, very good detectives and some of the top talent on the police department. Her name is Sergeant Karen Menendez. I'd like for her to stand up at this point. Last year, they decreased burglaries in the district from 2009 to 2010. They decreased burglaries by 187 burglaries. That's 3 digits. That's almost 200 less burglaries in the district as opposed to the last 4 or 5 years. We look at a 5-year scan, and that's about almost 200 burglaries in the district. And believe me, one of the hardest crimes to stop is burglary. It's people that ride around, they look for a location where police isn't present, and also neighbors aren't watching, aren't looking, and they invade a person's home and they break in their homes, and you're out trying to work all day and make a living and dedicate yourselves and being a good citizen, and you try to obtain things for your family and personal belongings, televisions, electronics, jewelry, money, whatever you have in your home. And then someone decides to come in and take it. I hate it. It gets under my skin. I don't like it because I've been a victim of a crime before, but to invade my personal space is really something that you just don't get over overnight. You know, a stranger coming into your home. So that's the #1 priority for me, is stopping people from breaking into your homes and breaking into your garages. That's my #1 priority. Then comes robbery. Then you can't walk the neighborhood and not fear someone driving up and approaching you and trying to take your belongings or take your money or take your car. I think that's horrendous. So that's very important for me to stop robberies in the district. At this point in time, we had a decrease in robberies in 2010 as opposed to 2009, and right now we're right even with 74 in the district in 2010. If we stay aggressive for the rest of the year, I'm looking for a decrease in robberies in the district also. And just to put it in perspective, I'll compare this district to another district that's comparable as far as population is concerned. In another district right now, they've got 221 robberies in their district, and we've got 74. So I think our officers are doing a good job as far as stopping that crime, and we'll continue to do that for the rest of the year as far as robbery is concerned. And then the next thing that we prioritize is larcenies, breaking into cars. And what I did to stop the larcenies, as far as the district is concerned, our efforts to stop the larcenies, we developed what we call a car clotting crew. And this crew was taken, I took some manpower from my overlay shift and some manpower from my platoons and created a car clotting crew that's being supervised by Lieutenant Vonda Rushing. These people, since their inception in the district, have decreased larcenies in the district and car clottings in the district. And I expect that at the end of the year, we'll be lower this year than as opposed to 2009 and 2010. And I'd like for Lieutenant Rushing to stand up right now, Vonda Rushing. She's doing a good job with that crew. As you know, a night shift will make or break. If you don't know, I'm gonna let you know. A night shift will make or break you as far as the commander is concerned and the district is concerned about keeping crime down, because a lot of criminals, they move at night. They get in their cars, and crime is transit now as far as the city is concerned, and the trends, crime trends are concerned, where people, what I mean is transit, criminals are getting in the cars. They feel safer getting in the cars and committing crimes as opposed to standing on a corner or walking in the neighborhood. They get in their vehicles because they know we have a pursuit policy. And sometimes we can't pursue people if they make it to their cars and they start driving off because of the safety of the public. We don't pursue them for some crimes, especially larceny crimes. It has to be a felony, a Part 1 crime, a very dangerous crime where bodily harm has been committed. Then we'll pursue. Or the possibility of bodily harm being committed, we will pursue. Well, my night shift has been doing an outstanding job. I got a new commander. For a little time there, I didn't have a commander on nights. And I spoke to the chief about it. He said he would address the issue, and he did. And he sent me a very, very good lieutenant. And I just leave him alone. He doesn't need micromanagement. He doesn't need to be supervised. He knows what he's doing. He's been on the department for many years, and he's doing a really good job with the night shift. And they're making a lot of effective arrests and stopping crime just by their presence and being active on nights. And that's Lieutenant Steve Cayley. Could you stand up, please? As far as latest issues in the district, some high-profile arrests that occurred in the district. You know, we had 2 bank robberies in the district, one being Commerce Bank and the other being the Carlton Bank. Well, we've cleared those robberies, and with the help of the Circuit Attorney's Office, 2 of the guys that did the Commerce Bank robbery, 2 very vicious individuals with extensive criminal history records, extensive convictions. With Jennifer's help, we're going to put them away for a long time. She's issued warrants on them and high bonds, and the judges with high bonds, and hopefully they'll be in jail for the next 20 to 25 years. These individuals that we know of are responsible for how many robberies, Lance? They're up to about 8 robberies. So they've been in the penitentiary, got out of the penitentiary, and they've been committing robberies all over the metropolitan area since they've been out. And at the Commerce Bank robberies, just to give you an idea of how vicious these individuals were, they held the tellers working in the bank at gunpoint with pistols to their heads, and while they took the money. And one of the individuals I know personally, we documented him as a gang member about 10 years ago, and he's known as a shooter on the street. And to get those individuals off the street is very big. And with the help of our detective unit, Detective Bureau, and my detectives that are being supervised by Detective Lance Isbell, who's one of the top detectives in the sergeants in the city. And our conviction rate last year was the highest clearance rate. Our clearance rate was the highest clearance rate in the city of St. Louis. And that comes from good supervision. And I'd like to thank Detective Sergeant Lance Isbell and stand up for that right now. I also have what I call a D platoon. The D platoon is a platoon that everyday issue, quality of life issues, when you see people, nuisance properties, or people that cause you, that is violating traffic laws, and people that are trying to beg and snatch purses at Hampton Village and at Targets and at Snooks. And those people that just hang around and they're a nuisance and quality of life issues, I created a platoon to handle those issues, and that platoon is doing an outstanding job. I mean, everything from A to Z, they're on top of it. And they do all the details in the district. They do parades, they do bike rides to make sure that officer presence is there so people won't break into the cars of individuals that attend these events. Your car is safe. You don't have to worry about walking to the park. For instance, we just had art in the park at Francis Park yesterday. There had to be, is Brad Ortega in here? Yeah. Sir, how many people you think attended that event yesterday? It's about 10,000 people that attended that art in the park yesterday, and we had officers from D Platoon working that event, riding around, making sure no one broke into any cars, and I didn't have a car broke into over there. It wasn't reported a car broke into over there, was it? No, we didn't have not one car broke into, and there was over 10,000 people there. So that's the kind of work that they do, and they're being supervised by Sergeant Brian Haley right now. Brian, could you stand up, please? I depend tremendously, I depend on the help and the supervision and the guidance of the supervisor sitting at that table. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my administrative aide, Mike Uffer. Could you stand up, Mike? He's an administrative aide right now, but he's done just about every job in the police department that you can think of. He was in the detective bureau for a while. For quite a while. He's flown in helicopters. He studies crime. He knows crime. And he's very passionate, and he's taken ownership of this district. He studies the crime stats. He puts together my CompStat plan. He does a lot of things for me as far as when I'm not, if I go on vacation or take a day off, anything. Mike is basically, he should have a white shirt on. He basically helps run the district, and he gives the information to the rest of the personnel in the district so everything runs smoothly. So I'm very grateful to have his assistance, and really proud of Mike. And right now, hopefully, pretty soon, he'll be getting promoted to sergeant. He did a good job on the sergeant's test, so we're looking forward to him being in a supervisory role. So good job, Mike.
So next we have St. Louis Circuit Attorney Jennifer Joyce. And again, this is the continuum of dealing with crime in St. Louis, starting with making a call to the police and helping in their investigation, and then moving on to the Circuit Attorney's Office to help prosecute the crime.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here tonight. As I was telling the organizers of this event, I'm always very, very happy to come back and speak in this area. Some of you may know me, grew up in this area. I grew up in the Lindenwood neighborhood at the corner of Pernod and Watson, back when it was Ron and Shirley's Pizza, if you can remember back that far. And went to grade school in the Tilly's neighborhood at St. Joan of Arc, and went to high school in the St. Louis Hills neighborhood at Bishop DeBerg, and I'm afraid I can't share what year I graduated, sorry. But it's always, I always feel like I'm coming home again when I speak in this area, and I have a deep connection to this area, and I have a deep appreciation for the community here and the close-knit aspects of the neighborhood and the pride of ownership that people have in their homes here, and it's just such a good, solid place to live in the city of St. Louis. And that's no accident. That happens because there's so many people involved in making it that way. I want to add my voice to Captain Robinson's in commending the two aldermen who organized this tonight. Aldermen Joe Vaccardo and Alderwoman, I don't know if she likes Alderwoman or Alderman, doesn't matter, Donna Baringer. Both of them do a terrific job. They are very vigilant. They're always trying to resolve issues in the neighborhood. The ones that I deal with, obviously the ones dealing with crime. I speak to both of them on a regular basis, and you're very well served by those aldermen. I also want to tell you what a great captain you have as well. Captain Robinson, I've worked with him for many, many years. I remember when he was just a plain old officer before he started rising up through the ranks, and he used to work in the gang unit. And when I was a real prosecutor, we worked together on cases. Smart guy, very effective, and 2nd District is lucky to have him. Along with all of these wonderful commanders over here that you've been introduced to, I've worked with all of these officers in my career as a prosecutor, and they are top drawer as well. So you guys got a lot of good assets here in terms of your leadership and your police. I wanted to introduce one other person, if you don't mind, and that is Eddie Roth from the mayor's office. I don't know if you guys know him, but I wanted to call your attention to him. And I don't know if I'm going to say his job right. He's got kind of a new position, but he's kind of helping, and he's studying the entire criminal justice system, the police, our office, the courts, and he's finding ways that all of these agencies can communicate better and work together better. Because everybody has the same goal, but sometimes it's a question of the police are speaking Chinese and we're speaking Russian, and there's all kinds of data issues and communications issues and just coordination. And there's never been one person to kind of look at all of it and figure out if there's a way we can be doing things better. And so that's what Eddie Roth is doing. Is that fair enough? It is. Okay. So I guess you guys are hearing all the time now. I mean, we just heard from Captain Robinson. There was an article in the paper recently. The FBI has said that statistics, crime statistics in the St. Louis area show that it's we've really had a pretty significant drop in crime. It is much lower than it has been in the past. Over the past several years, it's been dropping, and that is definitely something to clap about. I understand why people are talking about the statistics, and I totally get why statistics are important. But I also know, because I speak to people in the community a lot, and I've read some polling data recently on this topic, that even though the crime statistics show that crime has decreased dramatically over the past couple of years, people still have concerns about crime. People still feel like they wish they felt safer in their neighborhoods. And that's true across the board in all the different neighborhoods of the city, and it's true in the southwest part of the city where we are tonight. And I wonder, you know, I spent some time thinking, what is the disconnect? Because crime is going down, but people don't necessarily perceive that crime is going down. So what is this have something to do with the economy, that maybe people are worried about the financial picture, the economic picture, and that makes them feel uneasy about everything? I'm not sure that that's it. Getting out and talking to people, I think that the reason some people feel like they're not as safe as they could be in their neighborhoods is because they feel like they don't have any power in the situation between them and the criminal. They feel like whether or not they're safe has everything to do with the police or the prosecutors or people outside of their control, people outside of them. And so they're kind of at the effect of all of that, and whatever happens is going to happen, and me as a citizen, I don't really have a lot of control over that. And I find people that believe that, and they don't think that neighborhood associations and groups of citizens can do anything about crime. They think it's all about police and all about prosecutors. And so I ask all of you, who do you think is the most powerful force in the criminal justice system? Who's the most powerful person in the criminal justice system? You guys are smart, because sometimes people say, is it the chief of police? No, it's not the chief of police. Sometimes people are even crazy and they say, is it you? No, trust me, it's not me. It's not the mayor. It's not the judge. It's you guys. What I always say is the citizens are the 800-pound gorilla in the criminal justice system. They really, truly are. There is no force as powerful as all of you in terms of making your community safe and impacting results out on the street and impacting results in the courtroom. You guys are the most powerful force that there is. And I find a lot of times citizens don't realize that. And it reminds me a little bit of that movie, The Wizard of Oz. How many of you have seen that? You gotta have seen it, come on. And you know the plot of The Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy, you know, gets in the tornado and she wakes up in Oz, and the whole time she's trying to get home to her family. And at the very end, she realizes that she had the power to do it all along. She had the power to make happen what she wanted to happen. She was wearing the ruby slippers. And it may be a little bit of a tortured analogy, but I see neighborhood safety and neighborhood ownership and neighbors taking charge of their own security as kind of a ruby slippers issue. People don't realize that they have this power all along. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about tonight, is some strategies that you can use to own and manage the security of your neighborhood. And I'm not talking about something that's a full-time job or it's going to be a huge time commitment. What I'm talking about is kind of a philosophical shift. Instead of thinking about, well, why aren't the police doing this, and why aren't the prosecutors doing this, and why aren't the judges, you know, who's dropping the ball here? Instead of approaching the problem with that mindset, approaching the problem, acknowledging that it's a big problem and it requires all of us to work together, and thinking about ways that we can work together more effectively. Some ideas that other neighborhoods have used, and I'm seeing a lot of this mindset, this philosophy, is starting to take root in other areas around the city. The captain told you about the Dutchtown neighborhood. I live in Holly Hills neighborhood now, which is very close to Dutchtown, so I'm very much aware of what's going on in Dutchtown. Dutchtown had one of the highest crime rates of any in the city. And they recently adopted some of this philosophy and some of these strategies, and they have turned around their statistics dramatically. They now, I mean, the chief has told me, Chief Isom has told me that for years, the police department has been trying to figure out how to get a handle on Dutchtown. It's a very large neighborhood, a lot of crime, and you just can't get your arms around it. They go days at a time now without any calls for service in Dutchtown because of this citizen ownership that they've implemented there. Some of the things that they're doing, and they're doing it in Dutchtown, they're doing it in other neighborhoods, north, central, and south, is the citizen patrols. Or you can call it a mobile patrol, or you can call it whatever you want. And what it is citizens kind of getting together and driving around. Now, nobody's confronting any criminals or chasing them or wrestling to the ground or anything like that. But it's just looking to see what's going on, being observant. And what they found in neighborhoods where they've done this, like the Lafayette Square neighborhood, they noticed all kinds of stuff. Like right off the bat, they noticed a bunch of streetlights out that they can fix. Everybody knows that criminals don't like streetlights. And sure enough, you get those fixed and you're going to have an impact. Just looking for things of that nature. And they report what they see to the police. And there's all kinds of training for volunteers who organize this, and it's worked very well around the city. And as Captain Robinson said, the chief has said that when he sees this kind of activity in a neighborhood, he's going to assign an officer directly to that neighborhood to coordinate with those citizens. Other strategies that neighborhoods have been using, and this is more in line with what my office does, is that they've implemented a victim support network in different neighborhoods. And what this is citizens supporting citizens in coming to court or just going through the process of being a victim. Say your garage is burglarized and your bike and your lawnmower stolen. You know, if that happens to you, you may be feeling pretty crummy about that. I'm sure you are. Or as the captain said, if somebody comes into your home and burglarizes your home, you may be thinking, hey, do I really want to live in this neighborhood? Or what am I supposed to do now? And I can't take off work. And what are the options available to me? And you may be kind of lost after you report this to the police. What these neighborhoods have done that have done this victim support network is that it's a trained group of volunteers, and we provide the training with our victim advocates in the Circuit Attorney's Office. And what they do is immediately the next day, they coordinate with the police, and when they hear of a crime occurring, and they know of the victim of a crime, they reach out to that person. They'd call them, say, hey, we're sorry this happened. Is there anything that you need? You know, just to let them know that they're not alone. And believe it or not, it makes a huge difference in the ability of people to stand up to this and to get involved and to be witnesses and report the crime and follow through. You know, the number one reason why we can't prosecute cases in the circuit attorney's office is because the victim or the witnesses won't get involved. That's the number one reason. 25% of the cases that are brought to us out of these neighborhoods we can't issue because we don't have the citizen or the victim's involvement. And so if we initiate a victim support group like that, where you just a simple phone call, just to reach out, just to support one another, what we will see is an increase in the number of people that get involved with holding these individuals accountable that are committing these crimes. The third thing that I've seen neighborhoods do, and this is the most powerful thing, is the neighborhood impact testimony in court. And this is where citizens weigh in at the time of sentencing or at the time the bond is set, different points throughout the proceeding of a criminal case, and they tell the judges and the decision makers how this is impacting them as a neighborhood. And this is hugely powerful. They can do this by showing up in person. They can do this by writing what's called a neighborhood impact letter. And all of this stuff we can train you how to do. We've been doing training all over the city on this. I'll give you a couple quick examples of the power of citizens weighing in the court system. We had a young man who committed burglaries. And let me say, burglaries and property crimes are the biggest issue here. I completely agree with Captain Robinson on that. We have a team of attorneys that focus on nothing other than that, and they love to work with citizens because it's like rocket fuel for the prosecution to work with citizens. We had a individual from Tower Grove South neighborhood, not too far from here, and he was a young man, committed a series of burglaries. I mean, we rarely catch somebody, Sergeant Menendez, that's one burglary. We usually clean up a whole bunch of them when we catch the one guy. And this was one of those individuals who had committed a lot of burglaries. And the judge felt sorry for him. We asked that he go to the penitentiary. The citizen showed up for court, but he was wearing a suit, and he had his mother in the front row, and she was crying. And the judge felt sorry for him, wanted to give him one more chance since he was a young man, and said, I'm going to give you one more chance. I'm going to put you on probation. And the citizens kept an eye on this guy. The police kept an eye on this guy. Everybody kept in communication. Everybody worked together. And sure enough, 6 months later, he was caught breaking the law again. And so because of the vigilance of the citizens and the police on this young man, we were immediately notified. We ordered up a hearing in front of the judge to decide whether to revoke his probation. The citizens all came back again. The burglar came in a suit again. He brought his mother again. She sat in the front row and started crying again. You know, it worked last time. The judge sent him to prison for a very long time. And he did it because of the citizens being there and them saying, hey, we care about this. We do not want this serial burglar in our neighborhood. I'll give you one other example. Little old lady from up in the O'Fallon neighborhood in North St. Louis. She's in her 80s. I think she's like 85 years old. Her air conditioner was stolen back when it was very hot last summer. And it's dangerous for any of us. It's particularly dangerous for an elderly person. And she came down to court. There was the defense attorney for this guy who got caught with her air conditioner stealing it. He wanted the bond reduced on this guy. He wanted the guy to get out of jail. He wanted a lower bond. So we had a hearing. This lady came to court, and she brought some of her neighbor friends with her, and they all came down. And they decided that they wanted to be noticeable. So they all wore the same color shirt. They all wore yellow shirt. So when I walked in the courtroom, there was this big block of yellow shirt people there. It was awesome. And when they called that case, this woman got up, and she was brave because she had all her friends and neighbors with her, everybody wearing yellow. And she got up and she talked to that judge about what it felt like for her to have her air conditioner stolen and where was she going to get the money to do this. And not only did the judge not lower this guy's bond, she tripled the bond. I mean, and not only was this guy shocked, but there was a whole bunch of other guys there for their bond hearing, and you could see they were all making the mental note, okay, not going to O'Fallon, not going to go there, okay? There's no reason why these neighborhoods can't be exactly the same, that you can send that message to the community. It has huge results, and again, we can train you on this. And nowadays with the internet and CaseNet, and you can track all this online, it's easier than ever to get involved and make sure that that judge, when he's making that decision, is considering all of your viewpoints as well as the defendant's viewpoint. So I know I've been talking for a while. I want you to know that we've got some really super experienced prosecutors in the Circuit Attorney's Office. They're very dedicated to making this city as safe as it possibly can be. But the truth is, we can have 1 million prosecutors, we can have 1 million police officers, but if we don't have the involvement of you guys, the most powerful people in the criminal justice system, then we're never going to really move the needle. So I'm asking you to think about ways that you can get involved to work with us so that we can really continue to keep this a fantastic neighborhood to live in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Next, we have Neighborhood Stabilization Officer Annette Bridges. She's the NSO in the 23rd Ward.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much. I have been the Neighborhood Stabilization Officer in the 23rd Ward since December, but I've been an NSO for 17 years. And it's a great segue because Jennifer set up for exactly what I wanted to talk about. I want to give you tools so that you can be that 800-pound gorilla. I want to give you ways that you can get involved. I'm going to do a little experiment. When I started talking, guy got up, walked across in front. Think about it. Make a note. How tall was he? Think about it. Come on. Make yourself a little mental note. How tall was that guy? What color was his hair? What was he wearing? Did he have any facial hair? Was he wearing glasses? Okay, all right. Well, Joe, you can have him come back in. That mysterious character was my counterpart, Chris Howard, who is the Neighborhood Stabilization Officer for the 16th Ward. So Chris and I worked that out so that you could kind of, get an idea of what it is you need to know. In our office, we pass out just all kinds of good information and all kinds of tools. And I've put together a packet of all these things for you, and that'll be in the back, and there's a little sheet, and you can sign up, and we'll send you information as it evolves and as we come up with more information. So on your way out, you can take one of those packets and fill out the little sheet so we can contact you. And one of the first pieces in that packet is nuisance reporting. Chris left.
He made his getaway.
Right, exactly. Is nuisance reporting. And nuisance houses generally are places where the police have had to be called time and time and time again. And we have a system to deal with that, the nuisance property program. It consists of the police. We have a problem property officer in 2nd District. His name is Mike Dempsey, and Mike's not here tonight. We also work with city attorneys, and there are two. Rich Sikora handles the 23rd Ward, and neighborhood stabilization officers. And we get together every month at the police station, and we go over all of these properties who've had a large number of calls for service. But the way we also know that there's a problem is because you call us. You call me, and you say, look, down at 44 Mr. Jones Street, that house at the end of the block, and oh, by the way, we need the exact correct address. You call me, I track it, We put it into the problem property database, and if there are sufficient calls for service, that property owner, whether they live there or not, they are brought into the police station and they have to sit down with us and explain exactly what they intend to do to resolve that problem, to resolve that nuisance, to stop making your block a miserable place because of the behavior of people living in that particular address. If they fail to resolve that issue, we initially issue a cease and desist letter, which is sent in the mail, and then it's also posted on the property. And that is in effect for a year. After we sit down with them, if within that year time frame there are additional calls for service, there he is, Chris came back. If there are additional calls for service, then it goes to the next level. And ultimately, the property can be shut down for up to a year. And the owner is responsible for maintaining it, even though they can't live there or even though they can't collect rent on that property. So that's the nuisance property. And the card in the packet explains exactly how to report a nuisance property. It also has on the back information about whether what you saw, what date, what direction the perpetrator was going, whether they were on foot or in a vehicle, all the descriptive remarks. What we need from you to do our job is as much detailed information as possible. We need that. Pay attention. We also have a little sheet called Reminders from Your Block Captain. And it deals with burglaries, but also other crimes. And it says, stopping one burglar can dramatically reduce the number of victims of crime. And it goes on to talk about things you need to do. Know your neighbors, encourage exterior lighting, pay attention to noises, leave a number when you call the police so that they can call you back and get more detailed information. Be sure your address is clearly visible from the front and from the back so that if there's an emergency, the police and or other emergency responders can get to you. We need that correct address. And you need to know that you're not alone. On the other side is a place where you can list your neighbors. And Alderman Vaccardo gave this analogy, and any good idea is one worth stealing. He said, you need to know, it's like making the sign of the cross. You need to know the people who live in front of you, behind you, and on either side. And if you keep that information handy, their name, their correct address, and their work number, and be vigilant. Look out. If you see something going on at their house, call them at work and say, hey, do you have a furnace man? Are you getting a new air conditioning? What's going on? Just be aware, be vigilant. The next little handout we have is Citizen Service Bureau. And I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has called Citizen Service Bureau. But it's really important that you call on the little stuff. And there's an illustration of the kinds of stuff you need to call about. Graffiti on the wall, litter, high weeds, unsecured vacant building, derelict vehicles. Those are the kinds of things that signal to criminals that you don't care about the neighborhood, that there's, an area of the neighborhood that nobody's paying attention to. So if you see something, say something. Call Citizen Service Bureau. And when you call to report issues, if you're in my area and you get that service request number, call me and say, hey, I had to call in the weeds and tall grass down at the corner. What I'll do is I'll track that. And you can call me back and say, they gave me a date and that date's come and gone and the grass still hasn't been cut. What's going on? Call me. I'll track it. I'll find out what's going on. That's very important. And our office also offers clubs, anti-theft clubs. They're just $13, and we're at 1520 Market Street, room 4000. $13, cash only. Crooks are generally lazy, so if they see a car club, chances are they'll go to a car that doesn't have one. And I was going to tell you all about exactly what it is I do. And basically, I'm a problem solver. I try to bring to bear whatever city agencies or work with the police or work with neighborhood groups to try to solve problems. But the best thing I can do is to help you solve your own problems. I drive the neighborhood every day I'm out, and I drive a little black Saturn, so I'm not a suspicious person. If you see a car drive down and back up and drive down and back up, chances are that's me. It's a little black Saturn. Wave, let me know you're watching. I'd like to know that you're looking out for me. And last but not least, there's the new Good Neighbor Guide. And this one has a particularly good feature that breaks it down, what the city does and what the citizen does. It breaks down the city's responsibility and the citizen's responsibility. So take a good look at it. It's got a lot of helpful numbers. As I said, we've got packets back there. Give us your contact information and we can keep you updated. And my card's back there, Chris's card's back there. If you need us, just give us a call.
You know, first I'd like to say one thing that strikes me in going through this exercise and sitting here with these folks tonight is that we have a great bunch of public servants that serve our area and that serve our city. And I know in the media and in the public right now, public servants are taking a little heat. And some of it may be justified in some places, but I think we have a lot to be grateful for, and I just want to thank all of them. Also, I'd like to say that this is just the beginning. Obviously, we started out on this exercise to see what we could do to put in place a sustainable effort among neighbors. And as I said at the beginning, our hunch was we already have the tools we need. And I think tonight clarified that we do have the tools we need. And again, all that's missing is us. So all these efforts that were mentioned by these folks are going to be spearheaded by your neighborhood associations. So when we're done with the program here in a little bit, I'd love it if you'd walk back and introduce yourself to the leaders of your neighborhood association, especially if you don't know them already, and sign up for your neighborhood association and become involved. We do a lot as far as fun things. They mentioned the St. Louis Hills event yesterday. All of the neighborhood associations have marquee events that they do each year that make our neighborhood a better place to live. I'm getting the Lynn Fest sign waved at me back there. So it's important that we become involved in those organizations and get out and about in our neighborhoods. Also, you may have noticed a TV camera here tonight. The city has provided their services to tape the event, and we will provide a link on all of the neighborhood association web pages so you can share it with neighbors. Obviously, there's a little preaching to the choir going on here tonight because a lot of you are involved in your neighborhood associations, but that's good because as Jennifer pointed out, there are a lot of new things happening. So it's good to have the choir informed as well. But you also have neighbors who aren't here, and so providing that link to the videotape might be a way to get them to watch just a little bit of it. We joke all the time that there's about 3% of us watching out for the neighborhood, and everyone else is just busy with their day and doing their thing. And if we can get that 3% up to 5%, it'll make our neighborhood even safer. So we've had the perspective of the police department. We've had the perspective of our prosecutors. And we have the perspective of the city through the NSO. And so now I'd like to give you Alderwoman Donna Baringer from the 16th Ward to give you the aldermanic perspective.
Thank you all. Some people are kind of watching me back there. I was actually putting together an article about tonight because I want to get that in the South City Shopper, because I believe that the more we communicate to one another and let each other know what's going on, the better informed we are. The more informed we are, the better decisions we make, and the safer our neighborhoods are. And I've always believed that, and that's why I've always made sure I come to all the meetings, but not just myself, because I want to give a big pat on the back for the fact that not only does the captain come to the meetings, but we have police officers at all the neighborhood meetings, and you don't see that in other neighborhoods. And I don't mean just in the city, I mean in the county. So I want to thank these officers because they are always letting us know what's going on, and we're always working as a team. So guys, I appreciate it. And gals. The one aspect that has come up that I have to say when I say, I think I kind of know it all, but at times I say to myself, no, you can always learn. And the one thing that I think that we need to strengthen, at least in the 16th Ward, is what's called the impact statement. We need to follow these cases, and we need to go to the courts, send our letters, and make sure that the decision makers, as was said earlier, know that we don't want some of these criminals to get back out, because it does make a difference. And the other part of that, as a citizen, is that don't ever ask me to get out of jury duty, because my answer always is, if you want out of jury duty, then don't get mad if your car gets broken into. Because the average criminal out there, and it's sad to say, has been arrested, what, 8 to 10 times minimum? Minimum. We've had that have been arrested who have 23 felonies. So when you serve, you are doing your neighborhood a favor. So I always look forward to serving, because it does make a difference. So that was the big thing here, is that we work as a team. I appreciate the NSOs, the police, Jennifer, Joyce, the captain, the neighborhood associations, all the volunteers in every aspect. And someone had just mentioned there was thousands of people yesterday in Francis Park. I went out this morning with my dog at 8 o'clock in the morning. I didn't find any trash. And what that tells the criminals is, ooh, they take care of this neighborhood, they're watching, they're paying attention. It does make a difference just picking up that trash. So that's pretty much all I have to say, but thank you all very much for coming, because you care.
Well, not to make this the Joe and Donna Love Society, but we do have great aldermen and women in the 16th and 23rd Ward who go the extra mile and do more than a lot of their counterparts do. But we need to keep them on their toes and keep calling them with issues as well, and don't let them rest on their laurels. With that, I encourage you to hang around. Oh, actually, we have questions. That's right. Did any questions get passed up?
We have the chat, we have the captain here, we have the circuit attorney here, and we keep hearing about how there's no crime in our neighborhood. You know how many times Penn Station has been robbed in the last 6 months? Hucks. We had the shooting at Mally's. We had the shooting up on by 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven and Watson and Arsenal or Paulson been robbed how many times? 3 times? Guys, we need more police in this district. And I'm not ripping one of the cops. I respect the hell out of every single one of you. We need more cops in this district to take care of the problems that we have. That's my question answered.
Hey, he speaks very passionately, and I understand what he's saying, and I agree with him totally that we do need more policemen. But unfortunately, like he said, we don't control that. And as we mentioned before, because of budget restraints and economical reasons, we're doing more with less. And the robberies that he mentioned did occur, but the Penn Station hasn't been robbed 3 times this year. 3 times in the last 3 years it's been robbed. And we've been very diligent about trying to find out and solve those cases. And right now we've got a project going on where the officers are visiting the Hucks and the Penn Stations and the locations that have had multiple robberies at them. And they're visiting them. They're getting to know the employees there and developing a rapport with them. And I'm just as frustrated as you are about those incidents. But like I said, we have one of the highest clearance rates relative to robbery in the city, and the detectives are doing an awesome job relative to solving those crimes. And we're going to get it right. We're going to keep working hard, and we'll get it right. And if I have to send manpower over to those locations every shift, that's what I'll do. But I put out a directive, and the staff could tell you, and I asked them the question, Are these guys better than us? How can they keep robbing this location and we not catch who's doing it? So we're working on it, and we'll get it right, and I appreciate your passion.
You can stay there, Captain. I'll ask you a couple more. What do you mean by clearance rate versus conviction rate?
Clearance rate is solving or finding out who did and committed the burglary or the robbery or the crime, and taking them and having them adjudicated and taking them to justice, and we clear the case. Conviction rate, as Jennifer said, it has a lot to do with the victims responding to the circuit attorney's office and to court and being part of the prosecution process. So we can arrest them and we won't get a conviction, but we can definitely clear the case relative to who did and committed the crime.
And we have a question where, let's see, someone said that the 21st Ward is installing surveillance cameras to monitor street crime. Is this something we should be considering in our area?
I guess he's talking about Antonio French. Yeah, he's basically installing those cameras because of they're experiencing a lot of violent crime, shootings and homicides, and we don't experience that in our district. But cameras are always a help. If technology is used, it's definitely a help. So anytime that we can get the funding, if you're a neighborhood organization can come up with the funding, we'll definitely give you the locations and do the crime studies to find out strategically where we need to place those cameras. So we will assist you with that endeavor.
One last question for you, Captain. Some people have experienced being questioned by 911 operators as to what they consider a person of suspicion. What is the best way to convince an operator, and what should go into a description of a suspicious person?
When you see a suspicious person, study what they have on, definitely pay attention to the ethnicity, try to describe the clothing, or if it's a vehicle, the color, make, model. If you can get a license plate, get a license plate. Stay on the phone with the dispatcher. Let them know that you're serious about what you're talking about. And if they start to ask, they're only asking questions because they've been trained to do so. And if you get frustrated with them, try not to. Try to be patient and be concise with your descriptions. And you may receive a call back. If they say, would you like to call back? What the police officers are doing are trying to get additional information in case you see more. But we have directed our officers not to respond to your home unless you want us to. So you'll remain totally anonymous. So you let the dispatcher know that, hey, I don't need the police coming to my home if you don't want them to. But please continue to communicate, because it's going to be a trend that's going to be needed across the nation, as far as I'm concerned, in neighborhoods getting more involved with what's happening and engaging what's happening in their neighborhoods, because of the fact that there are less policemen, as Mr. Haggerty stated. And the only way, like she said, that 800-pound gorilla, she is definitely right. And criminals, I know for a fact, and from working with gang members, I was a gang unit supervisor in my career when I was a sergeant for 7 years. And as soon as they put graffiti up in the neighborhood, what they would do, they would come back within a 24-hour period, definitely the next day, to see if that graffiti was removed. And if that graffiti remained in that neighborhood, then they would claim that neighborhood as their turf. So when you pick up that trash or you see damage to your neighborhood, respond immediately. Let's get it removed. Call the police so we can photograph it and maintain whether or not whether or not it's graffiti related, tagging, or gang related. So it's important that you get involved, and that's the way it's gonna need to be from here on out. And believe me, it's just not isolated to the city of St. Louis. We've been in contact. Mike, the administrative aide, has been in contact with police departments in the county. They are getting hammered because of the drug problem with heroin. And heroin is driving a lot of people to commit crimes to support their habit. And it's an epidemic in the Midwest, and believe me, the city isn't the only one. We report our crime outstandingly to the media, to the FBI, to different agencies, and we report our crime, I think, true numbers. We're not trying to fudge anything. We're not trying to lie to the public. What's happening is happening because the educated public is better than a non-educated public, because we need your help. And dial 911. If you don't get anything from this meeting tonight and our future meetings, we want you to get more involved And don't hesitate to dial 911 when you see something that just doesn't sit right with you. Please call us so we can respond and do the investigation. And hopefully we don't need police to take any action. But 9 times out of 10, you'll be surprised that we do. And criminals are going to fit in and commit crimes where they're comfortable. So as far as there's no such thing as you're racial profiling or you're being prejudiced or you're being racist if you call on a person, no matter what color they are, and you see them in your neighborhood, don't hesitate to call, because we've been doing what we call criminal profiling. And we look every morning, we look at the descriptions of suspects that commit the crimes the day before. And we got both black, white, Hispanic, Bosnian. We've got all type. Crime transcends over all races. So please call the police, because you got a lot of people. You're not going to see a lot of white burglars up in North St. Louis because they don't fit in North St. Louis. So they come into neighborhoods where they can fit in. So if you see a strange person in your neighborhood, no matter what color they are, please dial 911.
Can I answer the questions for the chief, or for the captain too? I had a couple of...
Absolutely.
Okay.
They may tie in too.
Well, why don't you ask me your questions and then I'll...
Are impact statements released or shown to the criminal lawyer's attorney? And then there are several questions just about retribution and retaliation for 911 calls and for serving as a witness.
Our neighborhood impact statements released. They are part of the court file. They're given to the judge, and if they're given to the judge, then they're given to the defense attorney. But most of the neighborhood impact statements that we have do not involve someone's name. They just write their address, like the 4200 block of whatever. You know, they don't do anything to where that you can be identified except as a resident in that neighborhood. So we do this in a way that it doesn't point to a particular person, and we realize that people may be uncomfortable getting involved at that level, and so we take great pains to make sure that unless they want to be completely out on Front Street like that lady was, that we don't do that. We make sure that their views are known in a way that protects their identity. And then questions about fear of retaliation and things like that. I find that's a reason a lot of people don't want to get involved in making their views known in the court. And as I said before, we work with people to find a way to get their information to the court in a way that protects their identity if that's what they want. What we've done in other neighborhoods have had the aldermen come and speak. And, you know, I know, Joe, you've done that before in other cases. I think Aldermen Baringer has done that as well, and speak on behalf of the neighborhood, or bring in a written letter that's, you know, signed in terms of, as I said before, without your name. So there's lots of ways to do it in a way that you're not going to be feeling like somebody's going to get back at you for coming forward. But the important thing is that you have to make your views known. Because what happens in a criminal sentencing, if there's no word from the citizen, if the citizen isn't there, then the judge is making a decision about this individual in a vacuum. And what the judge usually sees is the defendant, again, dressed up in a suit, looking very cleaned up, very, you know, respectable, not at all looking like he did when he burglarized your house. And if there's no one there on the other side to be a human being and to tell about the impact that this has on them, the judges may feel like just overly sympathetic to the defendant and may not sentence the defendant in a way that reflects the values of the community. A couple of things I want to talk about. Conviction rate was asked of Captain Robinson. I want you to know that our conviction rate, cases that we issue with the police department brings us, where we have the involvement of citizens in the community, our conviction rate is 98%. So we convict the vast majority of people that we prosecute. The question is whether we can prosecute them or not. And that typically will turn on the involvement of a citizen. I agree that more police would be nice, but again, you can have millions of police officers, and if you don't have an engaged community, it's not going to get you where you want to go. And finally, with respect to surveillance cameras, I don't know what the aldermen are thinking about in this area. I'll put in my 2 cents. I love surveillance cameras. I love them. They are fantastic evidence for us. If they're good quality, we use them all the time. They can be a witness to something that nobody else saw, and they can be very, very helpful in us prosecuting cases. So if you have an area that's high crime and you put a surveillance camera there, I think that's a good idea. I'm not in charge of paying for them, though. So, yes.
So if we bring new restaurants, gas stations, we're talking about what Ponderosa is going to be a gas station, can't we mandate that they have a surveillance camera? I mean, it's not just, I understand that the, organization, they want to protect themselves and keep themselves safe, but maybe they don't have the money to do that. But we want to keep ourselves safe too. We patronize these places. We go in there. I mean, what's to say we don't, just say, hey, this is the deal.
I would support that. I don't know what the business owners would say.
Yeah.
We do it when the healthcare place came in. Whenever it takes a conditional use hearing, we always make surveillance cameras part of the condition. So where we can, we have that healthcare places along Chippewa, trying to think of different places. But we always, whenever we have a conditional use, we always make that part of the conditions of it that they would put surveillance cameras.
Yeah. It's a suggested idea. Whenever you have any type of a new development, that's when you have your people give suggestions. And that's why Target has, I think they have over 75 cameras just in the lower level garage.
And they have a very complex system. It's really good.
You're safer in the garage at Target with all the cameras than you are on that open line.
Good to know.
It is. It is.
One last question for Donna.
Since we're on the topic of surveillance cameras, has the city of St. Louis looked into, and I've heard that other cities, counties are doing this, not necessarily in Missouri, but creating a surveillance camera where 911 operators, the police department have almost immediate visibility when there is, something taking place, and they have access to visuals of the people, the cars, the license plates. I've heard it's costly, but obviously we have all of these private security firms providing security monitoring for 7-Eleven, for gas stations, and a network is created where they can tap into that. Has that been?
I have not heard that. I think that sounds like a great idea, but again, I'm not in charge of paying for it.
Yeah.
So I can come up with all kinds of great ideas.
Orange County is doing that right now, and I know they based it on some other cities and counties.
Makes a lot of sense.
It's a really, really cool project if we could find time for it, which I hope.
Yes, sir.
Since there is less policemen because of economics and everything, and if crimes are committed more at night, are there more policemen patrolling at night than during the day?
Well, in some districts there are. Most of our crime, as far as burglary is concerned, happens while people are at work. We are fortunate in District 2 to have a pretty solid population as far as homes are concerned. So, and a lot of people do police their own neighborhoods and police their own homes. So I basically focus my manpower to where crime is occurring the most during the daytime hours, from 7 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. And so that's when most of my manpower is out on the street. Now, if you talk about car cloudings and larcenies, they're happening at nighttime, in the nighttime hours. That's why I took manpower from my platoons and my overlay and have them work shifts that carry over into the night shift, into 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So we try to look at each issue and move and police smart with what we have and move our manpower to the times that the crimes are occurring. That's a good question.
Okay, Annette, we have a question for you. What is being done with problem nuisance property when the owner has been foreclosed upon? So, and then if you could speak a little to the difficulty of dealing with banks and...
Deutsche Bank, good luck. If it's Deutsche Bank or any of those other banks that were involved in the subprime, can you hear me? Should I stand up? If it's any of the other banks who were involved in the subprime, chances are that bank is controlled by another bank, and it's really very, very difficult. Ultimately, the city can secure it if it needs to be boarded. We can cut the grass if that's necessary, if that's not being done. So there's just certain basic maintenance that the city will take on, and then that represents a bill or a lien against that property. So that should it be sold, should it transfer ownership, ultimately we'll try to get somebody to pay that bill. But the city will maintain it because it has a negative impact on all the property around it.
And are problem properties made public in a list or published somewhere?
No. We do have a problem property database, and on a case-by-case basis, you can contact your neighborhood stabilization officer or Mike Dempsey, the problem property officer for 2nd District, and he can probably discuss on an address-by-address basis what's occurring there. But no, there's no overall public list of nuisance properties because they come and go. It's kind of, if a cease and desist letter expires and there haven't been any additional calls for service, then that property is dropped off the list. So there's no place. But you can always call either your NSO or the problem property officer for the district.
This will be our last question. And this is a point of confusion I've heard in other places, but this person asked, for non-emergencies, when I call 231-1212, I am told to call 911, so there is a record. So just one last time for clarification before we leave, what should we call Citizen Service Bureau for? And what should we call 911 for? And can we note that there really isn't a non-emergency line? We should call 911 and let them sort out whether or not it's emergency.
Yes. Well, Citizen Service Bureau basically handles things that are just an irritation, not necessarily a nuisance, but an irritation. You know, things like if you see a pile of limbs, somebody's cut down the tree and there's a pile of limbs behind their house, or they don't paint, or there are other just problems with the property, call Citizen Service Bureau. However, if it's a nuisance property, the police have had to be called time and again. Call 911. If there's a domestic disturbance, if you hear shots fired, if, you know, they're partying all hours of the night. I got a hot tub at a rental property that people tend to want to stay up all night and party in the hot tub. That's a nuisance issue. And go ahead and call 911 because they're disturbing your peace. That's a violation of city ordinances, of the law. Disturbing your peace. They don't have the right to do that. But if it's something that can wait, that, you know, chances are if the limb has been hanging off that tree and it's not going to fall on a house or a car, you can call Citizen Service Bureau, and then it can be taken care of.
Thanks to all of you for coming. If I didn't get your question, I apologize. We just sort of ran out of time. We wanted to wrap up by 8:30 and send everybody back to talk to your neighborhood associations, also to ask any individual questions you may have to our speakers. So thanks again for coming.
Even though they say crime's down, we are noticing a little bit more, and we had a shooting at one of the local bars, so it certainly caught everybody's attention, and before crime actually gets worse, we're going to do our best to put a stop to it.
I think it went very well, and the reason I think it went well is because when it came to the question session, you know, normally you're bombarded because people don't feel they got, you know, certain things answered, and in fact, it was the opposite. I mean, we had some questions, but they were very good quality questions, so that tells me that a lot of information that was given this evening did answer questions that people had in, you know, in their heads.
The plan was to have this as a first one. We're going to follow up in each individual neighborhood association, and then we're going to kind of group back together again. I thought it went really well. It was well attended, and I think the people came out with a lot of good information.